Welcome to this episode of the County Seat's Corrective Lenses Podcast. This podcast is the kind of program that we always wanted to do for our county seat program that aired on KTVX Channel 4 in Salt Lake between 2011 and 2022. Now, during those years, we had a fresh chance of each week to learn about issues, inventions, new ways of doing things, and, solving problems here in the West. Well, this show expands on that mission to focus more on the issues our fellow Utahns, Americans who are taking off the filters, the tinted lenses, and the spins on issues that affect us all, and get an informative and hopefully an entertaining glimpse of the genius of the American people. So today, I am pleased to have as my very first podcast guest a man who has become a good friend over the last few years, and a man whom I believe has leaped proactive forest management ahead by decades with the creation of his mechanical treatment process and the company that is trying to share it to the world. His name is Mike Siaperas, and the company is called 106 Reforestation. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it.
I'm glad you're here. The one thing I want to talk about, and Mike is a very humble guy, and you may not know it right off the bat, but he'll always say that the reason he's so successful is that he surrounds himself with really smart people. But over the 5 years that I've known him, and I've been in a lot of rooms with him when I realized he really is the smartest guy in the room. And
well, that's a debate. We'll debate that later.
Okay. Tell me the story of how you ended up on a mountaintop with a bulldozer and a whole bunch of ideas and new technology trying to save America's forests. How did it begin?
Well, it depends on how far you want me to go back, right? I mean, none of it would have happened unless I got in the medical industry.
Well,
right?
That's true.
I mean, obviously that's where I got the investment to follow my passion. So when I got out of high school, I got a interesting scholarship, if you want to call it that, from Calvin Rampton.
Oh.
I know that ages me a little bit. Governor of Utah back in the day, and I got an auto mechanics scholarship, which is my passion. It was my father's passion as well. But about a week or so before I started going to college, and it was a community college, I decided I didn't really want to get my fingernails dirty. And I'm not like a metrosexual guy or nothing, but I just thought, I don't know what it is. I think I was following my dad's path. He was going to open up an auto mechanic shop for him. He was very proud of me. And a week before, I thought, that's not what's going to happen. I need to find something so that 30, 40 years down the road, I have a pretty good nest egg to do the things I want, which was obviously, I loved ranches, and that was my dream back then. So I changed it to computer science. And we won't want to track the next 46 years of being in business, but for the most part, it's been a great industry, IT and healthcare. That's what I did. I got a degree in computer science, so I was a geek. I'm still probably a closet geek. Definitely not a closet redneck. I'm totally redneck. So that's why I'll debate all the time. I'm not the smartest in the room, but a dream. In a dream, a long time. I mean, I've been looking for property since I was probably 14.
Wow.
Which is a long time ago. In 2006, 2007, I leased some property up above East Carbon and Sunnyside in Carbon County, Utah. And it was at 10,000 feet. Loved it. Thought, well, what a great place. And then I was fortunate enough to become friends with the owner of the property, who was an old timer. I mean, he was a hardcore old timer. And we became pretty good friends. And he said, you know what? I'm getting old. My family doesn't want anything to do with it. Why don't you buy it from me, and I'll put it on a 30-year note at 8% interest, 10% down.
Wow.
So back in back in 2007, 20 years ago, 2006, about a couple decades ago, that made me pretty happy. And I thought, well, what a great way to start. That's all I knew. I just wanted to be out there. I figured that's the great place to be. But little did I know that not all forests are made alike.
Yeah.
So I failed to look at the landscape before I purchased it, but it didn't really matter. The fact of it was I would sit on my four-wheeler and drive around one road on the property I couldn't see anything because the trees are so thick, but it still didn't bother me. I was out. It was cool. Be free. I owned my own land. That was pretty neat. But then I got tired of just looking in the trees. So you asked me in the beginning what started all this. I got tired of looking at trees all the time, and I couldn't see anything because when you're out in the forest, you want to see more than trees. Trees are great, but you want to see wildlife. You want to see birds. You want to see all the stuff. And there was nothing there. Because literally, and I know that enough people have been out in the forest where you come across areas that have been, we're not going to call them mismanaged, but they've been overgrown.
Neglected, maybe?
Neglected, naturally neglected, whatever, where you can't walk through them. Nobody's going to walk through trees that are, waist deep, laying horizontal.
Oh, yeah.
Dead. So I thought, well, the only thing I can do is figure out how to clear it out. And I actually, in the beginning, I hired a dozer operator, used their own dozer, and they came up and cleared some meadows for me, a small little 2-acre meadow next to where I was going to build a little cabin so I could at least see out the cabin window. I know this sounds very simplistic in the beginning, and it always starts that way. And then as you see things change, it escalates quickly.
I believe that it can. Was hunting part of what you property
yeah,
for?
absolutely.
Because I know when you were young, you hunted a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's what I did. I mean I lived for that. I mean my grandpa and my dad and everything. That's how I grew up, was hunting. But when you get a little older and you buy a piece of property and your main goal is to hunt on it, and there's nothing to hunt on it, it's a little bit of a slap in the face. Like, what did I just do? I had some old timer talk me into a 30-year note at 8% interest. What did I do? But again, I brought some people in. I didn't know how to get on a bulldozer or heavy equipment, but they just pushed trees over 2.5 acres, and I saw my first deer, which was okay. Well, you do something once, and it's good. So why not do it 1,000 times? That's the problem. I jumped from 1 to 1,000, but it was exciting to see the growth of obviously, the ability to stop fires, building fire breaks. The state of Utah came to me and said, you've got a piece of land that's beautiful, but it's ready for a wildfire. Let us come in and help build some fire breaks on your ranch. And so the state was kind enough to do that. They paid a contractor to come in and do that on my land. I wasn't ready to invest at the time in any heavy equipment because it just seemed too expensive and wasn't my forte. Remember, I was a computer programmer.
Yeah.
How do you go from writing code to jumping on a bulldozer? But as I watched the areas and what they were doing happen, the transition was immediate. I mean, it was almost overnight. You could see the difference. And when you do that and you live out there 4 or 5 days a week away from your home, you see a lot of things that a lot of people in cities never see.
I know. Isn't that the great part about getting in the backcountry is that from the city perspective, you can't even imagine all the things that happen out there. It's different than going and staying in a lodge overnight. You see patterns out there.
Yeah, and that's why, me, I doubted anybody sitting in Washington, D.C. can give me advice on how to make sure my ranch is better off in 10, 15 years than myself. I see everything that happens on a daily with the wildlife, with the forest, with the feed, water. Everything I was seeing.
So your company that you built is called 106 Reforestation. What's the 106 about?
Well, that's why I did it. I just put a number in front of it so people would ask me questions. Interesting where that came out of is people know the show Gold Rush.
Yeah.
It's a popular show, right? I can't remember who the heck those crazy guys were, and they always said 3:14. And 3:14 is a verse in the Bible. At the end of the show, beginning of the show, when they were very, obviously they were religious, right? And they believed in God, and they were out there as a family and workers, and it was just a camaraderie that was pretty amazing. And I just was fascinated by the fact that they always had 3:14 on their helmets and everything. And so I went looking for a number.
And how did you come up with 106?
Well, most people would have thought I would have got 666. But I figured that wouldn't be good for marketing.
No problem. Probably not.
So, when I started doing the treatment, the aspens came up, and I was absolutely fascinated by aspens. I had no idea. I know it sounds stupid because a lot of people plant aspens in their yard and they wonder why the aspens grow in the grass. Well, I figured that out. I became an expert in my own mind, watching these aspens just go crazy. And so I thought, well, here I have a company that can do fire mitigation. And when I take the trees out that are dead or dying or laying on the ground, aspens come back up. So I kind of went searching for aspen, and I found a fascinating story at Fish Lake National Forest, and the largest living organism in the world, which is 106 acres of an aspen clone. And there's a whole nother podcast you can do on the aspen clone in the Fish Lake National Forest the other day. I thought, what a great number, 106, and it fall in line with people's curiosity, because everybody's going to ask you, what is 106? So it allows me, and you fell right into my trap. It allowed me.
Smartest guy in the room.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, so it allowed me to start the narrative with people and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's awesome. Plus, the most important thing about the company name is it looks good on a hat.
Well, that is important.
Yes.
When you started, though, you were basically working with a bulldozer.
Correct.
You were just pushing stuff over. Why did you vary from that? I mean, what you described as your first venture of climbing on a bulldozer and doing work on your ranch has no resemblance to what you do today.
No.
So what was the motivation to change what you do?
You ever heard of Russian roulette?
Yes.
Obviously, right? Mm-hmm. So fast forward a little bit, when I had contractors helping me do fire lanes and doing some of that, I was fascinated by the equipment. I mean,
you're
really,
a guy.
Seriously. There isn't too many people that come up to that mountain, and I put them in a bulldozer, and it's their best day. Mm-hmm. It's their best day in a long time, especially the veterans that come up to my ranch. They love it. But I was fascinated by it, so there I went, and I watched the other contractor and what he did right and what he did wrong. He did very little things wrong. He was a master at running equipment. He was a logger, so he knew how to cut a road where most roads couldn't be cut. And I sat there sometimes for 6 or 7 hours watching him work and kind of self-taught. And I asked him a lot of questions. He was probably annoyed. And then I decided to rent my first bulldozer and go up there and see what I could do. And it's like a toy for Christmas that lasts forever. So I had to buy one. Uh-huh. But then when I did it, it's different. It's because, there's people that have cut roads all over the world. Mm-hmm. We get that. But when you go into areas that are overgrown and you've got, trees about a foot apart and half of them are dead, and the ones that are alive, the tops are dead, and you're pushing with the dozer blade. And at the time, finances allowed me to buy a small dozer. Mm-hmm. I thought it was big, but everybody else up there said it was a teeny one. A 10-foot blade, I'm pushing stuff over. Every time I'd push something, obviously it'd either go over, the dead trees would snap, they'd come down on top of me, and I had an open cab. I should have bought something that guarded it, but I started, as I went, I saw how dangerous it was. I was enjoying it as much as it was a thrill, mm-hmm. right? But I was doing something.
Right?
But it was at a peril.
Yes, I can understand stuff dodging a two-by-fours to the head is kind of what.
Yeah. Well, there were full trees sometimes, and some snapped, and I got hit in the face a few times with some branches, and I don't know how many times I had logs laying on top of me. Not like on my body, because I was inside the cab.
Right.
It does have a square frame around it and stuff, but I needed to do more. But as I was getting smarter, I decided I'm not going to end up doing more because I'll be dead. That's what I thought.
Okay, so by the time you gave up on just taking a bulldozer and clearing a meadow, how many acres a day could you do?
1.5 on a good day.
Okay, so if you're trying to clear, you got 2,000 acres and you're trying to clear half of it. That's
very simplistic in the beginning, but an acre to an acre and a half on a good day, depending on, obviously it depends on the density, right? I mean, I could go through 2 acres if there was a tree every 50 feet. But it still wasn't as much as I needed. You can't. I mean, at 10,000 feet, you don't work up there in the winter. You only have so many days a year to do this.
Right.
Right. So, yes, the main reason is I had to find a different way. Being simplistic and going back to I'm not the smartest man in the room, because my next adventure was to buy an excavator so that when a tree was being pushed over, we could grab it and not have it come down on top of me and stack it better. So
somewhere in all of your video clips, I seem to recall once seeing an excavator that tipped over.
Well, I saved it at the last minute, but yes, I went and grabbed, I don't know, like a 100-foot blue spruce.
Yeah.
Which was a lot heavier than the excavator at the time.
Yeah.
So you learn. But that was my solution because I didn't know how else to speed it up. So I think between the excavator and the dozer, we were getting up to I think our record was 5 acres a day.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought that was pretty neat.
When did this become a mission, not just to clear Range Valley Ranch, but really to save the forest? Because that's what you're totally focused on now.
Well, yeah. If I was up there by myself doing all this and watching everything happen, whether it be the wildlife or making the forest better, more water, all the stuff, I probably would have just stayed being happy in my own little inner circle. But what really impacted me was when other people that are experts in the field of wildlife and forestry would come up there, and it was a big deal to them, at least in my eyes. I mean, people from Utah State University, they'd come down there and say, okay, well, bulldozing for aspens. And they actually said that obviously I was doing a good job and I was being conservationist and landowner. There was accolades.
You actually won an award.
Yeah,
right?
a couple of them. Yeah, Landowner of the Year, Conservation Year. That was all from state agencies, and so that's inspiring. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's like a trophy when you're in second grade and somebody gives you the.
As long as it's actually the first place trophy, not just a participation.
Yeah, right. So I think that I'm great at taking feedback. I'm great at listening to people, and I never claimed to do it right the first time, but I am a little bit OCD, and so I found myself in one of those situations where, okay, if we can do this just on this little piece of land, and everybody says that's where all the wildlife are coming. Obviously, the fire breaks are there. There's more water. I mean, I don't know. I mean, everything's an opportunity in life, and then I have passion, and so that's when I really decided. And I don't know how long I spent trying to find a method that could do this at a safe, because you have to be alive to do anything. And the other one is pace and scale. I mean, that's the common 2 words that you have to do. And along my travels on the internet, Mr. Google directed me to a project that happened in Hungry Horse, Montana, for the Hungry Horse Dam. They just bought a ship buoy and tied 2 cables to it and was running around the forest, knocking over 200 acres a day. Now, at the time, there was a lot of burnt forest up there.
Yeah.
Which is obviously another concern that we have nowadays. So they had a burnt forest that went through there, and all these trees were burnt standing up, but they were putting a reservoir there. So they had to clear 25,000 acres, and some people were very innovative in the 50s and decided to do this crazy thing because they I don't know whether they were scientists or whatever. They were probably just good old boy common sense people.
For somebody who can't envision this, you've got 2 bulldozers, you've got a buoy or a 10,000-pound ball in the middle, 2 cables stretched behind it.
Right.
What's the value of the ball?
Just to keep the cable from. So keep in mind the ball is in the center of the 2 dozers at all times. Winch cables, can go out to 400 feet. So you imagine. You got 400 feet on one side of cable, not a chain, a ball in the middle that weighs 10,000 pounds, and 400 feet of cable on the other side hooked to two dozers that are going through. That you couldn't put, cable doesn't weigh that much. I mean, 400 feet of cable weighs a lot, but in general, you can't. I mean, sometimes people say, well, it's chaining. It's not chaining. Chaining touches the ground and drags everything. This is 4 feet off the ground at all times because the ball is 8 feet tall. Mm-hmm. And from an engineering standpoint, that 4 feet on these big alpine forests, 4 feet's a good leveraging height. And that cable hits it. It's an 1.25 inch cable.
So the ball is really all about providing a lever point.
It's
and weight to keep it at that level.
Because think about it. I mean, if you didn't have any weight, what would you do with the cable?
Well, it'd pop over and on the cab of the tractor.
It would. I mean, it'd be crazy. But yeah, that's the main purpose of it, is just to keep the cable at exactly 4 feet. You don't want touching the ground.
Right.
The cable's not made to touch the ground. There's not a lot of leverage on ground. Yeah.
So this is from 1949, 1950.
Correct.
When these guys were doing the dam.
Yep.
All right, we jump forward to 2010. Maybe it's even a little later than that.
No, I was still sitting on a bulldozer pushing with the blade in 2010. It probably wasn't until 17 or 18 that I actually...
Okay, yeah. So anyway, it's been 65 years have passed since they did this.
Yes, they have.
And it kind of slipped into the catacombs of untapped history. When you decided to embrace this, how did you improve on it? Because obviously it didn't become the norm then. What did you do?
I mean, I've read the government federal reports on it as far as what they were doing up there, but why it was lost, why we stopped doing it, I think it ties into just forest management. I think it was a byproduct of no more logging as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were still logging in the 40s and 50s, 60s. That's that. But the point of it is they were going in and doing back then disaster recovery.
Yeah, they
were. Mm-hmm. I mean, they weren't going through a bunch of live trees. They were going through a bunch of dead trees. I mean, there was areas where they had live forests, but but you can't envision, and this is what we struggled with. They didn't have any technology back then, but I can't imagine that if you're 400 to 500 feet apart going through a forest, you have no idea where that other bulldozer is. You're going blind, right?
True.
So under a burnt forest, that's not the case. If it's burnt, you can see the dozer 400 or 500 feet away. So the old timers, we'll call them, mm-hmm. They knew what they were doing. They weren't stupid. They had old dozers. They were, all their links and chain. I mean, they were operating a bunch of stuff. And I thought, okay, well, that's nice. But I have forests right now on my ranch there are live trees. They won't be live for long because the conifers are encroaching on the aspens. Mm-hmm. And obviously, we don't want a whole conifer forest up there, right? No. We lose a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So
the biggest thing is nothing grows under a conifer. No. So water can't get in, food can't grow, wildlife doesn't come. It may smell good,
right?
But it's not a good picture.
Well, don't forget about the fact I look at trees nowadays and determine, where their age is, and some of the ones that are obviously big, standing, or on the ground, they tipped over. I mean, they're technically gas cans, and aspen not so much.
Well, yeah, because it's all the tar and everything that generated the pine tar. So
yeah, love pine trees, mm-hmm.
In moderation.
In moderation,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so it was fascinating that I went back and looked at it, but we weren't going to do the same thing as they did in the 50s. We couldn't, not if we were going through trees that were 100, 150 feet tall, that were so thick you couldn't see on the other side of it. And so the only way around is then I thought, okay, well, I'll go back to my early days in computer science and figure out what technology can we apply mm-hmm. to the heavy equipment that you can do this and not be blind. We set out to develop a software package, and it's called Dozer Sync. It's patented, and it technically does exactly what the word says. It syncs the two dozers together electronically so that each operator is not running blind. They see the other dozer. It's just on a screen. Yeah, it's like an 8-inch screen.
It's like playing Pong or something.
It is a lot like Pong.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a little bit more sophisticated than Pong.
I would hope so.
Yeah, it's all built from the ground up. I mean, circuit boards are even built by hand on this, and the software is written by hand. I don't want to even quote it because I'm not the one who actually wrote it. I just helped design the front end of it. 28 satellites or something it's running. Its degree of accuracy is just impeccable. So really what you do, it's a lot of pre-planning goes in, and you determine where these treatment areas need to be done. And it's no different than going into Google Earth and downloading the KMZ file in this software.
That makes sense. And then you figure out the land and the slope and all the stuff so that you're in the right parameter. So, but I want to ask this question because this is intriguing to me. When you first started doing this, people found out about you and the biologists and the watershed people, and they started to come to talk to you.
Yeah.
You're doing this, you're kind of doing this right. And they were initially kind of fascinated by it.
Correct.
But I'm seeing a fair amount of resistance to it.
Fair amount. Okay, we'll go with fair amount. I would tell that story. They were fascinated by it. Mm-hmm. It was different. It's not in a book anywhere.
This is true.
Right. So with all due respect to everybody out there that's gone to college for many years and read books and lived off of their peer study papers and everything, good. That's great. But I was on the fringe. I wasn't mainstream treatment. Right?
When I first saw this process in 2019, and I had an opportunity to bring County Seat up to your ranch, I was blown away. I mean, obviously, I had never seen anything like it, and I was likening it to science fiction,
right?
Just because it quietly moved through the forest and completely changed things instantly.
Right.
It was fascinating to me because I didn't have a negative reaction to it. I just went, this is pretty cool because this is solving a big problem that we have.
It does.
Right now.
And it's interesting you say that because any opinions on it that are contrary or negative exist where people haven't been there to see it.
And that is precisely a point that I want to make. I was recently at an event where there were a whole bunch of Utah field biologists, and they were in the process of setting projects for the next year.
Right.
And I talked to some of them specifically about your project because you have expressed the fact that there's so much resistance to it.
Correct.
I've been up there. I've been to your ranch 2 years later. I've been to your ranch 4 years later. I've seen what's happened, and it's like textbook for everything they want for a good, healthy forest. It's all there. You talk to the researchers, you talk to the scientists at the school, and they go, this is what the forest needs, both on the biology side and on the watershed side. I've both had people say, this is what you need. And yet the guys that are on the ground, the guys you think would be more in tune to it, it's just like, oh, well, it's got all kinds of problems. And
right. Yeah. That's easy to, yeah.
But here's the point. When I talked to them about it, I said, have you been back since the treatment? I never saw the treatment.
Yeah. No, I know.
Well, how did you know about it? Well, I knew somebody that was there.
Right.
I said, have you been back to see what's happened since? Well, no, but but they're saying it doesn't work and it's controversial and it's it's got limited success. And I'm going, how can you make that claim if you don't actually go look at it and see what's happened? I was blown away that there were people who are publicly making statements about your process who haven't seen it.
Correct.
So what do you attribute that to?
It's an opinion without facts. We live that world every day. They think they know the facts. I'll give you some examples. When we first started doing this, we can go down some really steep grades. I'm not worried about the steep grades because that was one of the things. Well, you can't go down steep. Well, you can't go down steep because somebody at the state level says you can't go down steep. Not me. I mean, I personally have gone down 75, 80% grade hills, right? So I'm not worried about it. I'll go down as steep as we need to make it work. But history and studies have said that you have to stay away from a certain grade on a hill.
Why?
Erosion.
Okay.
And very, very valid studies support that 100%. You're going to get erosion on steep hills. You're going to, under certain treatment methods. And that is very valid. You're going to get erosion. And that was one of the biggest things when we first started. They were saying, no, you can't go over 20%, because you're going to get erosion, because you're not supposed to disturb the soil. Mm-hmm. And yes, I listened to every single one of them tell me that you can't disturb the soil. We don't want erosion. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Something we're doing is not causing that. What is it? Well, when you cut a tree down, obviously the root ball's still in the ground. Mm-hmm. When you put a FECON head on something and do massification from the top down, it's still there. Mm-hmm. When you do a prescribed burn, the root ball is still there.
Charred in some cases.
Correct. Charred.
Still there.
Well, you'd think charred. It wasn't too good a prescribed burn. Or hand thinning. Root ball's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Still there. So if you think of all those treatment methods that, for the most part, are what is only accepted on a state and federal level, yeah, there's erosion. But you add something new to the mix, and it throws people off. Oh, we can't do this, can't do that. Well, because society as a whole lives in the no because section. They're going to say no because they're going to give you 20 reasons, 100 reasons why this won't work. And I laugh because I live in a yes, if world. Everything can be done if. And as we had some of the foresters that were warning us of erosion, and that was the big conflict in the beginning. Mm-hmm. These dozers weigh 100,000 pounds. They're going to leave all these ruts. It's going to erode everything. Well, that theory went away.
I was going to say that area that I was at last fall, that borders on that boundary road, the Cold Spring
Correct.
Wild Management area.
Right.
That seems like that's a little more than 20% grade.
It is. Yeah, we did up to 45 there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that, and of course, our conversation about this was after the fact.
Yeah.
So I didn't look that hard, but I saw aspen growth. I saw the treatment doing what you claimed it would do, and the only erosion that I could see in the whole place was a rut along the road where it hit, because the hill's pretty steep there.
Yeah, correct.
And water had picked up speed on the gravel road and eroded a little channel along the side.
Path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can fix all that too. I mean, that's just water bars and reclaiming the roads that you go in and out on.
But
that's easy.
I didn't see it anywhere else because there was too much growth there.
Well, too much growth, but again,
I don't mean too much.
No, I
get
too
it. Much, but I mean, there was structure on the ground that would prevent erosion from happening.
Yeah. Well, you get in those positions. So I heard them all say erosion. Well, if somebody brings to me a problem, I'm going to do the yes ifs. I'm going to try and figure this out. How do we figure this out? Why is there all this erosion? Why is there such a concern with erosion all over the place? Erosion. That's all I heard for 2 years.
Kind of like Marcia.
Yeah, same thing. So I thought, okay, I know that the erosion is not happening in our treatment areas, but our paths that we cut to get to the treatment areas, yes, they're going to be compacted over and over because that's kind of where most of the traffic is. Mm-hmm. So how do you reclaim a road? Well, you knock trees down over it. That's how you reclaim it. That's how they had us reclaim it. They just wanted us to put trees in the road. And that's fine because nobody could drive on it. Okay. That was the intention.
All right.
Okay. I had a little different view, but obviously my view matters little. I kind of figured that you probably ought to keep some of those roads open, at least accessible in emergency. Mm-hmm. I mean, why spend money to do this and then a fire comes in? Anyway, that's...
Well, it's the same thing as the Clinton Roadless Initiative on U.S. forests.
Yeah. See, the problem is everybody defines something in their mind. And once they lock into it, their inability to look outside of what's locked in their mind. So imagine us going into these treatment areas. So we have a 50-acre polygon, an area that trees need to be treated in. Well, in order to get in there, you have to what is defined as a road. Mm-hmm. Now, use the word road loosely. It's not paved, doesn't have curb and gutter in it. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's a track road. It's a place to get from point A to point B in the forest when you're doing treatment areas, right? But guess what? If you put it there, you can make it go away. When we're done in these areas, we have these tracked roads that a year or two later, you have no idea that they're there.
Well, do the aspen fill in, or do you plant grass, or what do you do?
Exactly. But I came up with a method, and again, I didn't read this anywhere. This was just common sense, So what I decided to do in these areas that people were calling roads, they're paths, instead of just knocking trees over in them, if you're worried about water and erosion and all that stuff, you have to do something more than just do that. And water bars, well, you can put a water bar in, but a water bar looks like a road.
True.
I mean, it looks like, you don't put water bars out in the middle of a meadow. I mean, maybe irrigation you can, but water bars are known for roads that get traveled on. And the reason is because you stop the flow of water every so many feet so it doesn't erode.
Right.
It's a water bar.
Right. You slow down the velocity of the water.
Flow. Right. So I travel back and forth from Salt Lake to my ranch outside of Price. And there, one day I was driving over to Soldier Summit, and I looked off to the side of the road and I thought, okay, that spring stream, it's a pretty big river. We'll call it a river. Goes from Soldier Summit down towards Schofield Turnoff. Okay. It's a windy one. And it looks like a lot of snakes. And I thought, wait a minute. Who caused that? Who made that river? Who made it?
God?
Mother Nature? I mean, we didn't make it, but there was a natural flow to that river that I saw one day, and I thought, wait a minute. So why is it that the river slows down when it goes around these corners? And it's like a snake. If a big rainstorm, big snowmelt came through, it would probably wipe out the corners and just go straight. But for the most part, this little snake that was up there by Soldier Summit fascinated me, because every time it took a left turn, it would kind of like flatten out and the water would slow down. When it took a right turn, the water would slow down, and so on and so on. I thought, okay, well, why don't we do this on these roads or paths? Yes, they've been compacted. So I have what I call, it's an S treatment. I use a 6-way blade, and I take the tip of the left side of the blade and angle it as sharp as I can, and I go back, and as I'm cutting a snake path in this area, it doesn't have to be in a road. It can be anywhere where there's going to be erosion. So I'm cutting a snake, a bunch of S, just S after S after S. So the blade goes one way, blade goes the other, and I'm building that river at Soldier Summit. And so,
how did you ever convert that into managing a blade on the front of a bulldozer?
Well, a 6-way blade, anybody can run them. I mean, it's just, it's fascinating too. When I first did it, people were laughing at me. What are you doing? You look like you're playing. Well, I'm not playing. I'm actually making a path for the water to slow down. So instead of going down, it'd go sideways for a little bit and then go back sideways. So interesting about that. Yeah, I did a whole area around 200 acres that way. And, they were fascinated by what was going to happen. But here's the fun part about it. You can't do that and think of it forever. You put a log across the road, well, that's pretty much forever. Water bars are deep, right? I was just cutting 10 inches, 12 inches down on these sharp turns. So then it snows, then the runoff happens, and then the rain happens. And it's all fresh treatment, because that's where you're going to get all the erosion. That's the problem with fires.
Once the roots are in and the plants come up, you're past the erosion part.
Correct. And so the fascinating part is I went back to those areas that looked, let's call it like somebody was playing in a bulldozer with all these S's. I mean, my last name starts with S. People thought I was, had an ego or something, but I really had a purpose, right? So you go back 2 or 3 years later, and guess what? There wasn't erosion there because it slowed the water down.
And there wasn't the S.
And there wasn't the S. The S is gone because everything has grown up through there. So everything that I did with my S treatment, it's pretty much flattened out now because it's back to natural.
So did you document any of this? Did you take any pictures?
No, but I can do it tomorrow if you want me to.
Well, I know, but then you got to wait 3 years to be able to go back to the biologist.
Yeah, well, that's on them.
I mean, I see all this stuff. It makes sense.
Right.
But you've got to be able to just put this in somebody's face and say, we're in trouble, because we are in trouble.
We're in trouble. Yeah.
We're in big trouble.
Correct.
we've taken logging out of the forest for the most part. I know that the Trump administration is trying to bring it back.
Yep, hopefully.
Okay, and the only thing they have left is prescribed burn, this landscape scale. You can go in and do a lop and scatter.
Oh, absolutely.
But, I mean, you have 188 million acres and say 25% of it is at high risk. Half of that needs to be cleared out or thinned out in some form or another. That's still...
Not in our lifetime.
At the current rate.
Well, at the current methods and
the
current
method. But the point that has me so frustrated is the burn forecast is that this is all going to go up in smoke in the next 30 years.
Right.
And at the rate we're going, it's going to take us 200 to treat it.
Correct, but that doesn't matter to most people. And here's the problem that we run into. And I've heavily admired you, and we've joked before about this path of resistance that you go down. And a path of resistance can beat you up, and because you're really trying to do something that's good for the forest. And so people say you're killing a tree that's breathing. Well, they don't understand. Yeah, I might take one tree out, but guess what? I'm allowing Mother Nature to put 30 more back. And they're healthy.
And they're better at everything.
They're better at everything. So I would much rather remove 10 trees that are dry, that are fire prone, that are sucking up a lot of water, that wildlife don't like. I'd rather take 10 out and put 100 in naturally that are much better for the environment. But people don't understand it. They see a tree falling over, and it's like, on some of my social media, somebody posted that I'm actually murdering a tree. Well, I've tried to equate it in the most simplest terms, but until you show somebody what you're doing, here's a dead tree. It's either vertical, it's horizontal, it's burnt, it's diseased. Do you want to leave that there for a catastrophic wildfire with less water, or do you want to remove it selectively and have a much better forest down the road? Because guess what? I'm not going to see that forest down the road. I'm 67. I'm not going to see that pristine forest. Now, I've had the opportunity at my ranch because it's been 20 years to see it. And I laugh sometimes thinking, I'm doing this and I'm getting to enjoy this. And people are being critical about the fact that I'm taking out trees. They don't know. They think I'm going downtown New York and knocking trees out of
Central Park
or something. It's not that. That's why people, when they see it, it changes it. But most people understand the common sense of it and the reality of what it provides. That's not the issue. Even if they don't see it, they understand what the outcome is. It's bureaucratic, mainstream, that they can't get on the fringes to change things.
William Perry Pendley, who was the ex officio head of the BLM in the first Trump administration, he and I are friends. We have talked multiple times about things.
Right.
And he just put out an article talking about the fact that the biggest problem that was solved by that brief period of time the BLM headquarters was in Grand Junction, that 1.5 years, is that decisions were no longer being made strictly on paper by people who had never seen the land.
Correct.
They literally could go see what their decision was that they were making on paper off of reports.
Yeah, right.
And he said it changed the dynamic.
Yeah.
So we're at a crossroad right now. You have an opportunity right now because this administration has changed. They're trying to find, one, a more efficient way to do stuff.
Right.
Two, they're trying to address how bad the forests are. So you have created a perfect cocktail, so to speak, to solve the problem, but you only have a window in which to do it. And and that window is right now. How do you get that word across? How do you get people to pay attention to what?
Yeah, I mean, great. I mean, that's your forte. I mean, I think I've reached a point where, I do a lot of things out of passion.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to do any of this stuff. There's many days I wake up and think, why am I trying to help the federal government or the state, and beating myself up on a daily basis and getting criticized all the time? Well, it's the right thing. Stay the course. It's the right thing. It'll all come out in the end. The big guy, the guy on the middle cross will dictate what happens, right? But I've reached a point that the facts will show themselves in the end, regardless of all the controversy or what people think. It doesn't matter. Right. I've reached a point where I've offered a solution I've put money into providing the solution. I know it works. Everybody that sees it knows it works. It's not like it needs to be studied for 1,000,000 years, because they do want to study things. And I understand why. There's a lot of value behind the studies if they're done right.
But I can't understand if you have this many acres that need to be treated and they say, well, we don't know if his process works. It looks promising.
Yeah, correct.
Every time you go look at what he's done, but we don't know for sure if it has. Why don't they just cut you out for 3 years for 12,000 acres and let you do 4,000 acres a year and just plot it and see what it does? Right. Why not?
Well,
I mean, it's not that much risk if they've got 47, 50,
it's not
50 million they need to do.
Well, do you have another 2 hours on this podcast? I can explain it all to you.
Well,
I'm just
give
teasing.
Give me the Cliff Notes version.
I'll give you the Cliff Notes. So when you do something new that's on the fringe, that's not been studied, that's a different technique, there is nothing for your audience to make decisions on. There's no multiple choice there. When you bring this new solution and they look at it and they think, okay, well, we are the people that know everything as of today and the past. That's what they do. And I say there are a lot of great people. I mean, it's studied, have great careers that are doing a lot for the forest and for obviously the environment. Absolutely. I'm one of them.
I do believe it because I've seen it.
But there is no possible way that group of people are going to allow a fringe person that has a new strategy, that has that mentality of solving a problem at pace and scale. There's no way that they're going to allow somebody like me or whoever else is out there to make 100% of those decisions. And I'll give you an example. So if I went into an area, if you gave me 20,000 acres, I know where my technique works. I know where it doesn't work. I know where we need to stay away from, right? I'm not taking out a tree, just take out a tree. I don't want to do that. We go around trees that are in the stage of life where they need to be. They're not being overrun. And that's mix and match anymore, especially here in the West. I mean, if you've had a fire or something, aspens are going to come up for 10, 20 years before you see a conifer anyway. So why go through those? I mean, you don't need to treat, no need to waste money doing that. So I look at an area and treatment different than the next person. But if the next person has control, where does that put me?
They're not going to like what you do.
They're not going to like my selection. But I know that if I can select which treatment areas, because it's not rocket science anymore, I can take satellites from Earth and I know exactly where these forests are deteriorating, right? They're no longer sequestering carbon, the dead trees, all that. I can see that. That's not rocket science, right? Got a company that you can push a button and tell me right where to go. If I get the choice to look at that with the metrics and the data I have, then I can make it successful. But if you bring multiple people in on a decision, are they going to turn something over that's on the fringe to making the decisions from start to finish?
I mean, if they're smart, they'll risk a little capital to find out if it works. That's my opinion.
No, it's your opinion.
That's why I say, what's the harm in giving you 12,000 acres and do 4,000 acres for 3 years and come back and look and see how it stacks up?
Well, I mean, it should happen, and there will be somebody in the future, whether it be a day from now or 20 years from now, that's going to make that decision. They will make that decision, whether it's the method I've designed or whether it's some other new thing that's not even heard of yet.
They just can't go on the way they're going because they're not getting anything done.
But the pain, as we call, people only change when the pain gets great, right? So, I mean...
fatal flaw.
It is a fatal flaw. I mean, the pain isn't there yet. And then so if you don't have the pain, right, because what are we doing? It's so funny when we sit down and we talk to all the people in the industry. There are people out there that are well paid, well educated, that have been in this for many years, that are perfectly fine with a catastrophic wildfire. No, I know you're shaking your head.
Yeah.
But that is a true statement. They are perfectly fine with a catastrophic wildfire. Okay. Now, there are people that are scared to death of catastrophic wildfires.
Yeah, if I had a house near one, I would be one of those people.
Correct. So you have a group of people, because it's the natural way of doing forest management, let it burn. But here's all your positives and here's all your negatives, right? If you go to somebody and say, okay, well, I'm fine with burning 100,000 acres. As long as it doesn't burn a home down or kill anybody, that's fine. It's Mother Nature's way of doing it, right? But what's left with that? What do you have left with 100,000 acre forest fire? Let alone the cost and of fighting it and everything that goes on.
Well, I'll tell you some of the things you have, and all you have to do is look at Dollar Ridge Fire, and it'll answer that question. You have massive erosion.
Correct.
You actually destroy not just streams, but rivers. You wipe out people's homes that weren't even involved in the fire because of the erosion and the mudslides and the water that come from it. You have massive amounts, tons of particulate matter that are compromising the atmosphere, maybe even affecting the weather. You have all of these things that are direct consequences of just letting it burn, not to mention you have unsafe land left behind.
But that's fine, because that's in the middle. What's the video that we...
Oh, the Alan Savory, the land guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean, it's like, if you're in the middle, you're safe.
Yeah.
If you're in the middle, there's no risk. I wouldn't want to be one of those people that are on the line for lighting a prescribed fire.
I wouldn't either.
Not nowadays. I mean, that's insane.
And yet, Mike, that's the middle.
It is the middle. It is the middle.
So even the middle is compromised.
Well, yeah. Otherwise, they'd be doing prescribed burns all over the West.
Right.
And they'd be fine with it. But you can't get a prescribed burn out of control anymore. I mean, ask Governor Newsom. I mean, that was disastrous what happened in California.
Yeah.
Disastrous. I mean,
it seems to me that your system applied 3 years ago could have prevented a lot of that.
yeah, I mean, obviously hindsight is hindsight. But yes, if you'd have got with me 3 or 4 years ago, when Trump had originally suggested it, whenever he did, it needs to be fixed. Yeah, I definitely would have made a lot better choice than what happened.
So I just want to add one element to it, and we've already addressed this, but this is not a project that you are looking at making millions of dollars on, and you've made that very clear.
Absolutely.
And I believe it. You want to set it up so that veterans
Right.
can come participate in this, and they have a chance to go out and fix the forest.
Right.
Why is that so
Well,
important
it's
to you?
again common sense. So I think most people that know me know my passion for helping veterans, right? I do have a nonprofit. I work with other nonprofits. And so I bring veterans up to my ranch. These are Americans, warriors, and spend some time with them and the people who fought for America. And then how, when they come back, they get discharged. We've done a disservice to our veterans. We've truly done a disservice with what we do. They're in some cases, they're expendable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that just disgusts me.
Well, I think this is part of what motivates Trump is he looks at Ukraine, he looks at Gaza, he looks at all these places where people in charge are easily making decisions, turning people, whether they're soldiers or residents, they become expendable.
Yeah.
And it just because the sides are picked and the war must go on. And I can imagine it's very frustrating too.
Yeah, I mean, would you do that? I mean, I talk to some of these veterans, and they get to a point where they're fighting for their brothers as much as they're fighting for America. Now, under different administrations, so I need to make a point on that, and I know that for a fact. But in my exposure to the veterans that have come to my ranch and heard, and you made a point. It was late in the game, but it was very poignant. You said that you had done some research, you did some studies that for the most part, there is an opportunity for our enemies to use forest as a tool of weaponry, right? I mean, you sent me an article, I read it, it's fact, right? Sure. I mean, we don't know what some of the facts and some of these fires that get started nowadays. I mean, there's so much facts that are unknown as to why some of these things happen, especially in California, because there was a lot of, I don't know if things come out, but you equated it to me. It was almost like going to war.
It kind of is, because it is a threat that needs a military scale response.
Amen.
It doesn't need necessarily to have cannons or anything.
No,
it needs
no.
it needs a military-grade response, or we're not going to get ahead of it.
No, we're not. And yet, so it kind of fell into my lap. The solution fell into my lap. The solution being that every time we had veterans come up there and we showed them what we were doing on the forest management side, and they had the opportunity to be in a piece of heavy equipment and doing something great for America, the forest as well, and knowing that they're fighting alongside their brothers again, because these treatment areas don't happen in downtown San Francisco. Mm-hmm. They don't happen in downtown New York or Chicago. They happen in very remote areas where I can guarantee you the veterans that have fought for this country is where they operate the best. They don't operate in downtown New York. That's not where they want to be. They will. They'll fight to the death wherever it's at. But they're the best army that any national forest could have, whether it's my treatment area or anything else. You bring veterans in on it, they will shine above every other industry out there. They're not white collar, they're not blue collar. To me, they're like gold collar. I mean, it's a slam dunk.
Yeah,
right?
they have a sense of purpose. Like
they have it. Oh, yeah. I mean, why do you think I'm doing what I'm doing at my ranch? I mean, the sense of purpose is beyond what most people can comprehend nowadays. I mean, I'd give anything for them. And so, yeah, that fell in my lap after kind of doing that. So kind of follow up. But yeah, I mean, it's also simple. We have a common sense method to help the forest, to help the water, to help the fire, regrowth, and help provide jobs for the people that have gave us our freedom. It's all easy. I've got lots of videos that you can send out to show people how easy it is, but it's not going to be that easy when you present it to people in Washington or at the state level, because they're going to be no because. So how do we solve this? Because that's what you're trying to get at. I get it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you become a believer by seeing it.
True.
And I've had people that come up that have been emotionally angry hearing about it. I mean, some pretty high-powered people in the state of Utah mm-hmm. that disagreed with it. There was no way it was going to work. It's like, okay, why are we knocking trees over? Well, first of all, we're not knocking trees over to build homes. Right? I mean, you can imagine the process however you want to imagine the process.
Right.
And if you imagine it that we are taking out sequoia trees and we are destroying and burning the wood, then you can imagine that all you want. But that's not what the fact is.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, and that's the thing. But we've turned non-believers and adversarials against the process into total believers, a total success. So I'll call you are a very big believer in the process because you're not a dumb person.
Well, there is some debate about that.
So it's easy for most people to see that. Again, write your narrative and it'll become anything you want it to be. I'm not writing a narrative. I'm just writing facts, and you can make a decision on that. I know one thing, why I sleep at night. I don't care how much people throw stuff at me and what I'm doing. It doesn't matter. I know that it'll be proven one day if I'm still alive or not. Mm-hmm. And history will write it that why didn't we do this sooner? Or guess what? If you disagree with my method and I have another philosophy, lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Lead, follow, get out of the way. Get out of my way. Or provide me a different solution. Provide me something. Today, if somebody came to me that it made financial sense and it had all the attributes of success on what we have already discussed in the 106 treatment method, I would drop the method that I have immediately and hook onto that wagon. If it provided better results, less, faster, I would do it. Why? Because it's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really care how it's done. It just needs to be done.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
Yeah. If somebody comes up with a laser from the sky that disintegrates all the trees that need to be disintegrated and all this byproduct happens from everything that we've done, then great, let's do that. Let's do something. But let's not just walk around with chainsaws on our hips all day long.
One last thing, and then we'll wrap up. You know, when I first met you, you were perplexed on what to do with the slash piles.
Yes.
And you were genuine. I didn't really know you then. You really were genuinely perplexed. You're going, it's the only thing that bugs me is I don't know what to do with all the waste product. And you've solved that now.
I have solved it. Well, it kept me up at night. I actually solved it a while back in a technique that again, if you provide it to somebody with that hasn't been studied for 5 to 10 years, it's going to be no because, right? So you have these SLAS piles. So people say, well, why don't you make timber out of them? You're not going to make timber out of subalpine firs that are above 8,000 feet. Nobody wants them. Now, if we can develop a way to get those out and make them financially viable, but that's not going to happen. I mean, what do they say? Like you have to be within 50 miles of a lumber mill nowadays to even make the wood, right? And we're in so remote places. We tried that method to get the commercial, and there was very few commercial trees. I mean, you'd have maybe 1 per 2 acres sometimes, because at that elevation, you don't get a lot of, dug firs. You do, but you get a lot of the soft wood.
Right.
And not that it's not usable, but okay, so SLAS piles, had all these SLAS, what am I going to do? Well, they burn, let's just burn them. Okay, well, that seemed fun. It was fun to watch the fire burn, but it wasn't serving the right purpose, right? And so then when you have 10 piles, that's one thing. And then you get up to 500 piles, it's another thing. You get up to like 800 piles and you have to burn them. It's environmental change that I didn't like. And it was an issue. So what are we going to do? Well, one way is to make a SLAS fence. So you use the byproduct of the forest management and you put a fence around all your treatment areas for a lot of reasons, right? So that deer, elk, cattle don't go in and wipe out the aspens that are grown because you don't want that, because otherwise you're going to end up with an area that you treated that you think is going to be better forest that's gone.
Right.
Overgrazed. Okay. So if you put a fence up around it, and the old timers again used to make fences out of SLAS piles to keep the cows out because it was cheaper. It's cheaper than barbed wire.
Right.
Right. So I started experimenting with SLAS fences, and it's not new. It's been done for many years, except that everybody was telling me, well, I'll build them 10 feet tall so the animals can't jump over them. Well, you build them 10 feet tall, you still have a SLAS pile. You still see it.
Right.
And you'll see it for a long time.
Right.
And it didn't make sense to me, so I built them wide and not so tall. And people, well, you can't do that. That's not going to work. They're going to jump over it. Well, guess what? Who invented the cattle guard?
Yeah.
Right? Who invented the cattle guard? The cattle guard isn't tall. Why don't animals go across cattle guard? Well, they're not sure of their step. So I started putting a wider fence, SLAS fence, that was maybe 20 feet wide and 3 feet tall. They didn't go through any of it. Everything I put around it was untouched. I mean, on the center of it.
Right.
And guess what happens with a 3 feet tall SLAS fence?
It'll eventually degrade, right?
It just degrades. There's no burning.
Right.
Now, you can go back and burn it if you want, but why? It'll degrade. If the carbon is a concern, then you can write that narrative as well. So that was a solution, but I got, resistance on that. And it was funny. We have 1,000 elk in this area we're doing treatment on. Come on. 1,000 elk are going to wipe out everything we want to do with aspen. No, they'll be fine. I go back 2 years later. They put test areas up there. Every test area we had is like 4x4 by 6 feet tall. Had aspens growing out of it like crazy. There wasn't an aspen outside of that area. All those elk are coming and wiped it out.
Huh.
So but that's okay because they made a decision. That's what they're going to do. So we lost aspen regen. Now, we stop a fire? Yeah, we still stop fire, right? There's better grazing. That's still there. There's more water.
That's still there.
Right? That's still there. You just don't have the aspens anymore.
But that was the key to the healthy forest. Right?
Well, that's the key. But again, writing your story, it runs into a dead wall. You got to change the narrative. So so that was one method. But then I thought, okay. So, and we could talk all about the whole atmosphere and all this like Green New Deal and all that.
That's a whole other.
Yeah, it is. But you have to do what's right. If you erase all that static, you have to do what is right is if you treat a forest and you have a SLAS pile of the treated timber that's there, you can either come in and chip it, spread it on the forest floor. That's very effective. I be that facetiously. It's not cost effective.
I was going to say it
right.
doesn't.
It's a manual process, kind of. I mean, you have automated chippers. I get that, but that's a big deal.
Still have somebody pick them up and shove them in it.
Can't burn them.
All right.
And they're still burning, but try and get a burn. I was in Texas the end of last year. Try and get a burn down there on mesquite. You're never going to get a burn in Texas. So what happens to these piles? Well, they do their decaying process, and they sit there, and everything that's underneath them doesn't grow. You can see from Google Earth it doesn't grow.
Right.
I mean, and add those acres up. So went back to the drawing board and decided, what is it that I can do that I can take those slash piles and make it a positive? Go back to the drawing board, get some intelligent people that are the smart people, not me, design a mobile gasification reactor unit. And I know that's a fancy word for a really cool kiln.
Yeah.
Okay.
You make charcoal out of it.
Yeah, make charcoal, biochar, charcoal out of it. And so we all know, I mean, when's the last time you went to a store and you haven't found some kind of organic fertilizer that doesn't use the chemicals anymore? It's all organic. And char is just the best thing for your garden, for your fields, for the forest, right? I mean, it obviously helps retain water. It's a amazing byproduct, minus the carbon sequestering, all that green stuff. It's the right thing to do. Whatever you do, you take what's left over and make it more valuable and leave wherever you're at better shape.
And you overcome the transportation barrier.
All of it.
Because biochar you can take out by the bag.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You can take it out. You can send it to ranchers and farmers, or you can just put it back on the forest floor.
Right.
Because now you're doing, and guess what? All these burnt areas, I mean, all those burnt trees are sitting there, right? They've kind of started the process of biochar. I mean, I be that facetiously, but it's not what you want.
No.
You're a forest fire, a natural catastrophic forest fire, even a prescribed burn isn't gonna leave it in anywhere near the shape that what we're talking about.
Well, even without the biochar, I look at the Coal Springs area again, one of your treatments, and you can stand on a hillside and you look over here, you can see your treatment, and it's a golden meadow of aspen.
It is, yeah.
And you look at the controlled burn, and the main prominent feature is the burned trees.
It is, yeah.
There's some aspen in it.
There is, yeah. And that varies. And the cool thing about the aspen clone, it'll make you look terrible, or it'll make you look really good.
It has a mind of its own.
It has a mind of its own. They're all kind of separate organisms out there growing and everything, and one does better than the other. And I've always wondered why I go up in the fall and wonder why are these aspens turning and these don't turn for another month? Well, they're all separate organisms. They have different DNA. They run different, right? So if I go into an area and I hit a clone that maybe isn't where it needs to be in its life cycle, it will not generate as much aspen as I want it to. Prescribed burn will be the same way. Any treatment on that will be the same way.
Same thing will happen.
So it is a crapshoot. Now, get a prescribed burn 1,000 acres. Do my treatment method, do any other treatment method, and tell me in 5 or 10 years which one you'd want to do again. But I'm waiting for somebody out there, whether private entrepreneur, federal, state, to come up with an amazing solution for us to put veterans to work to help the forest, regardless whether it's 106 or not. Don't care.
Wow. Anything else you want to add?
No, I still think I'm not the smartest in the room.
Well, I'm fairly sure you are today. Mike, thank you so much for your time today. This is obviously a passionate issue for you and a critical issue for the millions of us who live in the West. We have unfortunately run out the clock while we've ignored the realities of what our inaction and hands-off approach has done to our forests. So, to our listeners, I urge you to please share this conversation as far and wide as you can. You can visit our website, thecountyseat.tv, to find this full conversation and some excerpts. Please send them to all of your congressional representatives, community and state leaders, and let's get the word out about this. And we hope you'll stop by the county seat next time we put on our corrective lenses for a look at another important issue. Thanks for being with us. Thank you, Mike. Hope you'll come back when we talk again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So how soon are you going to be able to get back?